The small outpost floated quietly in the endless void of space, far from the bustling trade routes and major colonies. It was a lonely place, but for Elliot Grayson, it was home. He liked the solitude and the constant hum of machinery that kept the station running. An engineer by trade and a tinkerer by passion, Elliot spent most of his days fixing equipment, improving outdated systems, or simply staring out at the stars, wondering what lay beyond. On this particular day, Elliot was in the middle of repairing a power relay when a sudden noise startled him. It wasn't the usual static from the station's long-range sensors. It was a faint but urgent signal. His tools clattered to the floor as he hurried to the console. A distress beacon. Elliot squinted at the screen. The signal wasn't human. The symbols didn't match any known language he'd encountered. It was alien, and it was close. Only a few thousand kilometers away, orbiting a nearby gas giant. His heartbeat quickened. Encounters with alien ships were rare in this part of the galaxy. He hesitated. It wasn't his job to answer distress calls. He could ignore it, but something gnawed at him. If someone needed help, and he ignored it, he wouldn't forgive himself. "All right," he muttered, grabbing his toolkit. "Let's see what's out there." Elliot powered up his small shuttle, the Odyssey. It wasn't much, barely larger than a cargo container, but it was reliable. As he approached the source of the signal, his shuttle sensors locked onto a massive alien ship. It was sleek and elegant, its hull glowing faintly in the darkness. Yet it was clear something was wrong. One side of the ship was scorched, and faint arcs of electricity flickered over damaged panels. He sent a communication ping, hoping for a response. To his relief, a reply came almost instantly. A holographic image flickered to life in his cockpit. The beam before him was unlike anything he had seen. It had translucent, shimmering skin that seemed to glow with soft colors. Large, luminescent eyes stared at him, full of both caution and desperation. "Human," the voice said, its tone musical but strained. "We require assistance." Elliot nodded, keeping his tone calm. "I'm here to help. What happened?" The alien hesitated before replying. "Our energy systems have failed. We cannot repair it ourselves. Will you assist us?" He paused. This wasn't going to be easy. The ship's technology was far beyond anything he'd worked on before, but he couldn't say no, not when their lives might depend on it. "Let me dock," he said. The alien nodded, and the hologram vanished. Carefully, Elliot maneuvered the Odyssey into the docking bay of the alien ship. As the airlock hissed open, he was greeted by a group of the aliens. They stood tall, their shimmering forms almost ethereal in the dim light. The leader stepped forward, their gaze wary but hopeful. "I am Commander Lurian," the alien said. "You are?" "Elliot Grayson." He nodded. "That's me. Let's get started." The interior of the ship was a marvel. The walls pulsed faintly with light, and the air seemed to hum with energy, despite the evident damage. Elliot was led to the main control room, where a massive console displayed a complex web of symbols and diagrams. "We've isolated the damage," Lurian explained, pointing to a section of the console. "But our tools are incompatible. We lack the precision required for repairs." Elliot studied the console, his brow furrowing. "This is advanced. I'll need to figure out how your systems work before I can do anything." The aliens exchanged uncertain glances. "Do what you must," Lurian said finally. Hours passed as Elliot worked. He deciphered the ship's systems bit by bit, using a combination of intuition and logic. The technology was unlike anything he'd encountered, but it shared some basic principles with human engineering. As he worked, the aliens watched in silence, their glowing eyes following his every move. "Got it," Elliot muttered at last. "Your main energy conduit is damaged. It's causing a cascade failure in your power grid." Lurian stepped closer. "Can you repair it?" Elliot nodded slowly. "I think so. But I'll need your help. Some of your tech is too delicate for my tools." The commander hesitated before nodding. "We will assist you." As the aliens gathered specialized equipment, Elliot couldn't help but feel a strange sense of wonder. He was working alongside beings from another world, repairing a ship that seemed more like art than technology. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, as if he was part of something far bigger than himself. The hours passed quickly as Elliot worked, the hum of the ship's strange energy systems filling the air around him. It was clear that this wasn't just an ordinary repair. The more he studied the alien technology, the more amazed he became. The ship's design was like nothing he had ever seen, sleek and organic, as if the ship itself had grown from some kind of living material. Elliot's fingers moved quickly over the controls, adjusting wires, tapping at holographic panels, and reconfiguring circuits with a precision he hadn't thought possible. He didn't even realize how much time had passed until he heard a voice beside him. "You are making progress," said Lurian, the commander, standing next to him. The alien's voice was calm, but Elliot could sense an undercurrent of concern in it. "I think I've got it," Elliot replied, wiping his brow. "But I need to get deeper into your main power grid. There's a backup conduit that could fix everything, but it's hidden beneath layers of your system. I'm going to need access to that." Lurian nodded. "We will provide you with access, but be careful. Our power grid is volatile, and if you make a mistake, it could cause further damage." Elliot glanced up at the alien. Lurian's glowing eyes seemed to hold a certain wisdom, but there was also a quiet urgency in their expression. They were clearly worried. He took a deep breath. "Understood," he said. "Let's do this carefully." Lurian moved to a nearby console and began speaking in a series of clicks and hums. Soon, a small group of other aliens approached. They were all different in appearance, each with shimmering skin and different markings, but they shared the same glowing eyes and air of intelligence. The aliens worked quickly, opening access panels and revealing intricate wiring beneath the surface. It was unlike anything Elliot had ever seen, a web of glowing lines, shifting and changing colors as though alive. It made him feel small, like a human on the edge of an unknown world. He swallowed his awe and focused. He had a job to do. Using his knowledge of engineering, Elliot began to align the delicate wires, connecting them with the precision of someone who had spent years fixing machines. The Xelari, the name of the alien species, as Lurian had explained, watched him intently, their eyes following his every movement. As he worked, Elliot started to notice something strange. The Xelari weren't just observing. They were communicating with each other in quiet whispers, using their subtle telepathic abilities to share thoughts and emotions. The more Elliot worked, the more he felt their curiosity and wonder toward him. They were amazed by his skills and fascinated by how he was able to fix something they couldn't understand. After a while, Elliot connected the last wire and stepped back. The system hummed to life, the lights on the ship flickering as the energy grid began to stabilize. "It's working," Elliot said, a smile spreading across his face. Lurian stepped forward, his eyes glowing with what Elliot could only describe as admiration. "You have done it," the commander said. "You have saved us." Elliot shook his head, still feeling the rush of success. "I just fixed a few things. It wasn't anything special." But Lurian's response was firm. "It was everything. Without your help, we would have drifted into deep space, helpless." Elliot's smile faded slightly. He hadn't expected this kind of gratitude. In his line of work, fixes were just part of the job, nothing to be celebrated. But for these aliens, for the Xelari, it was more. He watched as Lurian called for a small gathering, and the crew of the ship gathered around. Their faces, illuminated by the soft light of their ship, were filled with respect. Elliot didn't know what to say. He was just a human engineer, far from home and surrounded by beings from another world. Then, to his surprise, Lurian spoke again. "Elliot Grayson, Your actions have proven that there is more to humans than we have been led to believe. You possess knowledge and skills that no Xilari has ever known. For this, we owe you our thanks." Elliot blinked. "It's really no big deal. I just did what needed to be done." Lurian's eyes glowed brighter, and a sense of solemnity filled the room. "It is a big deal. You have saved us from the void, from the cold of space, and from an uncertain fate. And for that, we will reward you in a way that no one else could." Elliot's curiosity piqued. Reward? He hadn't even thought about that. He was just happy to help. But now, standing in front of these aliens who had no idea what humans were truly capable of, he felt a sense of pride he hadn't expected. "What do you mean?" he asked. Lurian glanced toward the others, who nodded in agreement. "We shall offer you a gift, a reward for your bravery, your knowledge, and your unwavering commitment to our survival." Elliot raised an eyebrow. "What kind of gift?" Before Lurian could answer, a soft hum filled the air. Elliot looked around, and the walls of the ship seemed to ripple with energy. The Xilari moved with fluid grace, and the entire room filled with a faint glow. The reward, whatever it was coming. Elliot had no idea what to expect, but he had the feeling it would be something beyond anything he could have imagined. The room was alive with energy as the Xilari moved about, their glowing forms casting soft light across the walls. Elliot stood still, his heart racing with both curiosity and a touch of unease. He had no idea what kind of reward the Xilari were offering him, but from the way they spoke, it was clear it would be something important, something special. Lurian stepped forward, his large, luminescent eyes locked onto Elliot's. "The gift we offer you is not one given lightly," the commander said. "It is a gift of knowledge, a gift that will shape the future of your species." Elliot blinked, trying to understand. Knowledge. What could they offer him that would change the future of humanity? The Xilari seemed to sense his confusion. One of them, a smaller alien with bright teal markings across its skin, stepped forward. It raised a hand, and the air around it shimmered. A holographic display flickered to life in front of Elliot. The images that appeared were unlike anything he had seen before. Worlds, galaxies, and star systems he had never heard of. The display showed maps of the galaxy, filled with paths, trade routes, and distant civilizations. "These are the stars you do not yet know," the Xilari said in a voice that was both calm and melodic. "The galaxy is vast, and there is much you have not discovered. We offer you access to our knowledge, our maps, our technology, and our history. You will be able to see the universe as we do." Elliot's breath caught in his throat. It was overwhelming. He had always known the galaxy was massive, but to see it laid out before him in such a clear and detailed way, this was beyond anything he could have imagined. "You are offering me your maps, your technology?" Elliot asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lurian nodded. "Yes, the Xilari have long explored the galaxy, seeking to understand its mysteries. We have records of ancient civilizations, lost technologies, and advanced sciences that have yet to be discovered by your people. All of this we are offering you." Elliot felt a rush of excitement. The possibilities were endless. Imagine the advancements humanity could make with this knowledge, the diseases they could cure, the technology they could build, the exploration they could undertake. It would change everything. But then a thought crossed his mind. "Why me?" Elliot asked. "Why offer this to a human? I'm just one person. Why not share this with all of humanity?" Lurian's gaze softened, and for a moment, there was a silence in the room. "Because, Elliot Grayson, you represent what is unique about your species. You have shown us that humans possess something rare: resourcefulness, determination, and the willingness to help even when the odds are against you. It is your ingenuity that we value, and it is why we trust you with this gift." Elliot felt a swell of pride at Lurian's words. He had never thought of himself as extraordinary. He was just a man who liked to fix things. But hearing these aliens speak of humanity's potential in such a way made him feel like he was part of something much larger than himself. "And what do you want in return?" Elliot asked, still processing everything. Lurian paused. "We ask for nothing in return. The universe is vast, and we believe in the sharing of knowledge. However, we do ask one thing, that you use this gift to help your species grow and prosper. Share what you learn with others. Help them see the stars as we do." Elliot nodded, still trying to wrap his mind around the enormity of what was being offered. "I'll do that. I promise." The Xilari seemed satisfied with his answer, and the display in front of Elliot shifted. New images appeared, videos of advanced machines, alien technologies, and even strange, shimmering devices that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Elliot watched in awe as the images played out, each one more fascinating than the last. There was no way he could even begin to understand it all. But he knew this was the opportunity of a lifetime. "This knowledge is yours," Lurian said, and with a gentle gesture, the holographic display faded, leaving Elliot standing in front of the Xilari, feeling a sense of awe and gratitude. The room grew quiet for a moment, the weight of the moment settling over him. It was hard to believe that just hours ago, he had been alone, fixing a broken ship. Now he was standing on the edge of something far bigger. He was holding the future of humanity in his hands. As the Xilari began to gather their tools and prepare to leave, Lurian turned to Elliot one last time. "We have one final gift for you," the commander said. Elliot looked up, intrigued. "What is it?" Lurian reached out with a delicate hand, placing something small and glowing into Elliot's palm. It was a smooth, spherical object, almost weightless in his hand. It pulsed with a soft, blue light. "This," Lurian explained, "is a device that will allow you to access our knowledge. It is linked to the core of our network. Whenever you wish to learn, simply hold it and ask. It will guide you." Elliot stared at the device in his hand, feeling the weight of the Xilari's gift. This tiny object held the potential to unlock everything. The future of humanity was now in his grasp. "Thank you," Elliot said, his voice full of wonder. "I won't let you down." Lurian gave a final nod of approval. "We trust you, Elliot Grayson. Go forth and share what you have learned." With that, the Xilari began to prepare their ship for departure, leaving Elliot alone with the device in his hand and the promise of a future filled with endless possibilities. The sound of the Xilari ship's engines grew louder as it powered up for takeoff. Elliot stood at the edge of the repair bay, watching as the sleek alien vessel prepared to leave. The gift they had given him pulsed softly in his hand, and he couldn't stop staring at it. It felt heavy with promise, as though it held the future of humanity itself. Lurian, the Xilari commander, approached him one last time. "We leave now, but our paths may cross again," Lurian said, his voice calm and steady. "When the time comes, we will be ready to assist you again, should you need it." Elliot nodded, still trying to process everything that had happened. He had helped repair a ship, received knowledge from beings far beyond his understanding, and now he was standing on the precipice of something incredible. It was hard to wrap his mind around it. He had never thought of himself as someone who could change the course of history. "Thank you," Elliot said, his voice sincere. "I'll make sure your trust in me isn't misplaced." Lurian gave him a small smile, a rare sign of emotion from the stoic alien. "We have no doubts, Elliot Grayson. The potential within you and your species is greater than you realize." With that, Lurian turned and walked back toward the ship. Elliot watched as the Xilari climbed aboard, and the ship's sleek, glowing engines hummed louder, lifting off the ground. In moments, the ship was soaring into the sky, disappearing into the stars. Elliot stood there, staring up at the sky long after the ship was gone. His heart was still racing, and his mind was buzzing with the enormity of what had just transpired. He had always felt small in the grand scheme of things, just another engineer fixing machines on Earth. But now he had been given access to a whole new universe, one filled with possibilities that humanity had only dreamed of. He glanced down at the device in his hand. The small, glowing orb seemed harmless enough, but Elliot knew it held the key to unlocking unimaginable knowledge. The future of humankind rested on what he would do next. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. As he turned back toward the base, the reality of the situation started to sink in. He wasn't just an engineer anymore. He had become a bridge between humanity and the stars. The knowledge of the Scifi, the maps, the technology, everything he had been given, was now his responsibility. It was up to him to share it, to guide humanity toward a new future. When he entered the main building, he was greeted by a few of the base technicians who had been working with him on the ship's repairs. They looked at him with curiosity, as if they could sense something had changed in him. But Elliot couldn't bring himself to tell them the full story. What he had just experienced was beyond anything they could comprehend. Instead, he tucked the glowing orb into his pocket and walked over to his workstation. There was still work to be done, tests to run, reports to write, and machines to fix. But his mind was no longer focused on the mundane tasks of everyday life. The universe had opened up before him, and everything was about to change. Later that night, in the quiet of his small quarters, Elliot sat down at his desk. The orb rested in front of him, glowing softly in the dim light. He hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to begin. It felt strange, holding something so powerful. But he knew that he couldn't waste any more time. The Scifi had trusted him, and he couldn't let that trust go to waste. He reached out and picked up the orb. It was warm in his hands, pulsing with a gentle rhythm, almost as if it had a life of its own. He took a deep breath and focused. The moment he did, the orb responded. It flickered, and a wave of information flooded his mind. The symbols, the images, the maps, the knowledge was coming at him in a rush. It was overwhelming, but it felt right. It was like a flood of clarity had swept over him, unlocking parts of his brain he didn't even know existed. Elliot blinked and pulled back for a moment, trying to process everything. It felt like he had just learned a lifetime's worth of knowledge in a few seconds. The Scifi's technology, their understanding of the universe, was now at his fingertips. And with it came a sense of responsibility. The gift he had received was not just a tool for personal gain. It was a gift meant to benefit all of humanity. He knew that he couldn't keep this knowledge to himself. He had to share it. He had to find a way to make sure that others could understand what he had just learned, so they could unlock their own potential. The universe was waiting. It was time for humanity to take its place among the stars. The next few days were a blur. Elliot spent every waking moment studying the information the orb had given him. He barely slept, driven by the realization that this was his moment to make a difference. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He would need help. Scientists, engineers, leaders, and dreamers who could help him understand the full extent of what the Scifi had shared. But one thing was certain. Elliot Grayson was no longer just an engineer. He was a pioneer, the first human to hold the key to a future among the stars. Elliot had barely slept since receiving the Scifi's gift. His mind was filled with the images and knowledge that the glowing orb had shared with him. It felt like there was a new part of his brain awakening, one that was capable of understanding things he had never even dreamed of before. Every time he closed his eyes, the stars, galaxies, and advanced technologies filled his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the edge of something extraordinary. But as much as he wanted to keep the knowledge to himself, Elliot knew he couldn't. This wasn't just for him, it was for all of humanity. The Scifi had trusted him, and it was now his responsibility to help others see the future he had glimpsed. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. One evening, as he sat at his desk, studying the information the orb had shared, Elliot made a decision. He couldn't do this alone. He needed to bring in others, people who were experts in their fields, people who could help him make sense of all the new data. He needed to find a way to share what he had learned without overwhelming anyone. The world wasn't ready for all of it just yet, but there was no denying that the future had already started. He quickly drafted a message to several scientists and engineers he knew from his time working on various projects. It was a vague message, not revealing too much, but enough to spark their curiosity. He asked them to meet him in person. No emails, no phone calls. He needed them to understand the seriousness of the situation. The next morning, a small group of experts gathered in a private meeting room. Elliot had made sure that no one outside of this group knew about the meeting. His heart raced as he prepared to share what had happened. They were going to be the first humans to learn about the Xilari and about the vast universe that lay beyond Earth. As the group settled into their seats, Elliot stood before them. He could feel the weight of their expectations. They had no idea what he was about to tell them. "I know this sounds strange," he began, his voice steady but filled with excitement. "But what I'm about to share with you will change everything." The group exchanged puzzled looks, but they remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "I was part of a mission to repair an alien ship. The ship wasn't from any known species. It was from the Xilari, a race far more advanced than anything we've ever encountered." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Elliot could see their eyes widen in disbelief. He could hardly believe it himself, but there was no turning back now. "The Xilari gave me something," he said, holding up the glowing orb. "It's a device that holds their knowledge, their maps, their technologies, and their history. Everything they've discovered over centuries of exploration is now in my hands, and I need your help to understand it." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The room was still. Everyone was listening, trying to process what he had just said. "Why me?" one of the scientists, Dr. Langley, asked. She was a seasoned astrophysicist, skeptical of anything that couldn't be explained by science. "Why not share this with governments or the scientific community?" Elliot nodded, expecting the question. "I thought about that. But the Xilari gave this to me because they believe humans have something special: our creativity, our ability to adapt, and our drive to push the boundaries of what we know. They didn't just give me this knowledge because I fixed their ship. They gave it to me because they believe in humanity's potential." The group exchanged uncertain glances, but something in Elliot's voice seemed to resonate with them. This wasn't just a story, it was a call to action. "I know it sounds unbelievable," Elliot continued, "but I've seen it. The Xilari's technology, their knowledge, it's beyond anything we've imagined. And now we have the opportunity to learn from them, to share in that knowledge, and take our species to places we've only dreamed of." Another scientist, Dr. Mitchell, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What exactly do you want us to do?" Elliot's heart beat faster as he realized that this was the moment. This was where everything would start to change. "I want us to study the data that Xilari shared with me. I want us to start working on their technology, their science. Together, we can unlock the mysteries of the universe. But we need to be careful. We can't just go public with this knowledge yet. The world isn't ready for everything that Xilari have shared. But with your expertise, we can begin." There was silence for a moment, as the group absorbed his words. Elliot could see the skepticism in their eyes, but he also saw something else: curiosity, excitement, and perhaps even a little fear. They knew this was big, but the question was, would they be able to handle it? Finally, Dr. Langley spoke. "You're asking us to trust you with something enormous. Something that could change the course of history. Why should we believe this?" Elliot held up the orb again, feeling its soft pulse in his hand. "Because I believe in humanity. I believe we can do something great with this knowledge, and I believe you're the people who can help make that happen." There was a long pause. Then, slowly, one by one, the scientists nodded. "We'll help," Dr. Langley said, her voice firm. "But we'll need to be careful. We need to make sure we don't rush into this blindly." Elliot nodded in agreement. "I know. We'll take it one step at a time. But we're not alone anymore. The future is out there, and we have the chance to reach it. As the meeting ended, Elliot felt a surge of hope. This was just the beginning. He had a team now, a group of brilliant minds who would help him unlock the mysteries that Scifi had shared. Together, they would shape the future. And Elliot knew one thing for sure. Humanity's journey to the stars was just beginning. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. Elliot and the team of scientists worked tirelessly, poring over the data that Scifi had shared with him. The glowing orb was a constant presence on his desk, emitting a soft pulse that seemed to hum with potential. Every time Elliot touched it, more knowledge flooded his mind, revealing a universe of possibilities. The feeling was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. They were no longer just observing the stars from Earth, they were preparing to reach them. The team had divided into smaller groups, each focusing on different aspects of the Scifi's knowledge. Some were studying their advanced propulsion technology, others were analyzing the maps that detailed distant star systems and alien civilizations. There was so much to learn, so much to understand, that they all knew that they had to proceed with caution. The Scifi had trusted them, but the responsibility weighed heavily on them all. One evening, as Elliot sat in the lab, reviewing the latest data from the team, he felt a sudden rush of excitement. One of the propulsion scientists, Dr. Olivia Harris, had made a breakthrough. She had uncovered a design for a new type of engine that the Scifi had developed, a system that could potentially revolutionize space travel. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Elliot quickly called the team together, eager to share the news. They gathered in the main conference room, their faces tired but eager. It had been a long few weeks of intense work, but the possibilities were now within reach. "We've made a breakthrough," Dr. Harris said, her voice filled with excitement. "This engine, it's based on a principle that we've never even considered before. It harnesses energy in a way that's completely outside our current understanding of physics. If we can reverse engineer it, we could travel across the galaxy in a fraction of the time it takes with our current technology." The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. The implications were huge. If they could replicate the Scifi engine, humanity could travel to distant stars, explore new planets, and perhaps even meet other advanced species. The future was suddenly within reach. "This is it," Elliot said, his voice filled with awe. "We've just taken the first step toward becoming a spacefaring species." There was a ripple of excitement through the room. For the first time, the team could see the path ahead, a path that would take humanity to the stars. But there was also a sense of caution. They had to be careful. They couldn't rush this. They needed to understand the technology thoroughly before they could make any moves. Over the next few days, the team worked day and night, analyzing the data and running simulations. They discovered that the Scifi engine wasn't just about raw power. It was about control. The engine was designed to manipulate the fabric of space itself, creating a stable and controlled wormhole that allowed for faster-than-light travel. It was a delicate balance, one that required a deep understanding of both science and precision engineering. Elliot spent hours with Dr. Harris, going over every detail of the design, making sure they understood every aspect of the technology. They couldn't afford any mistakes. If they miscalculated, the consequences could be disastrous. As the days passed, the excitement continued to build. They were getting closer. Every new piece of information they uncovered brought them one step nearer to understanding how to build the engine. And as they worked, Elliot couldn't help but think back to the day when he had first met the Scifi. The aliens had seen something in humanity, something that had made them believe in Earth's potential. They had shared their knowledge with him. And now, it was his responsibility to ensure that it was used wisely. But Elliot knew that it wasn't just about building the engine. It was about preparing humanity for what came next. They couldn't just rely on alien technology. They had to be ready to take on the challenges that would come with it. The Scifi had shown them the way, but it was up to them to walk the path. As the team continued their work, Elliot's thoughts began to turn toward the future. What would it be like when humanity could finally leave Earth behind and explore the stars? What kinds of civilizations would they encounter? What challenges would they face? There were so many unknowns, but one thing was certain. They would face them together. One evening, as Elliot stood outside the lab, gazing up at the stars, he felt a sense of purpose that he had never known before. The Scifi had given them a gift, but it was up to humanity to make the most of it. They had the potential to change the course of history, to create a future where Earth wasn't just a small planet in a vast universe, but a thriving part of a galactic community. Elliot smiled to himself. It was a daunting task, but he was ready. He had seen the future, and it was filled with possibilities. And with the team by his side, he knew they could accomplish anything. The universe was waiting for them. The breakthrough was complete. After weeks of studying, planning, and working around the clock, the team had finally done it. They had successfully replicated the Scifi engine design. The engine, now housed in a lab-built prototype, pulsed softly with the energy of a new age. It was as if the future itself had been captured in that sleek, glowing device. For the first time, humanity had something that could propel them beyond the stars, into the vast, unknown reaches of the universe. Elliot stood in front of the prototype, his heart racing. The moment had arrived. They had done it. The dream of traveling to other star systems, of exploring new worlds, was no longer just a dream. It was about to become a reality. But with this new power came great responsibility. The Scifi had shared their knowledge with humanity, and now humanity had to prove that they were ready for it. He turned to Dr. Harris, who had been instrumental in understanding the technology. Her face was lit with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. They had spent so many hours together, working on the engine, testing every component, and refining the design. It was their collective effort that had brought them to this point. "We did it," Elliot said, his voice filled with wonder. "We really did it." Dr. Harris nodded, but her eyes were focused on the engine. "It's still going to take some time before we're ready to send a ship out into space. We need to run more tests, make sure everything's stable. But this is the beginning of something huge." Elliot smiled. "I know. This is just the first step. There's so much more to do, but this is a victory. We've shown that we can take their technology and make it our own." The room was filled with quiet celebration, but Elliot couldn't help but think of the future. The Scifi had given them the tools, but the real challenge lay ahead. Humanity wasn't just going to leave Earth and travel across the galaxy. They were going to have to learn how to live in space, how to survive in the harsh environments of distant planets, and how to interact with other alien civilizations. But that wasn't something Elliot feared. The Scifi had shown him that humanity's strength lay in their curiosity and resilience. They were a species that never gave up, that always found a way to adapt and thrive, no matter the challenge. And Elliot believed that this new chapter of human history was going to be one of the most exciting yet. As the days passed, the team continued their work, refining the engine and preparing for the next steps. They began construction on a test ship, a small vessel that would carry the engine into space for the first time. There was still much to be done, but Elliot felt more confident than ever. The ship would be their first step into the cosmos, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take them. Then one day, as Elliot was reviewing the plans for the test flight, a message arrived. It was from the Scifi. Elliot felt a rush of excitement and curiosity as he opened the communication. It was a holographic message, and as the image flickered to life, he saw a familiar face, a Scifi representative he had met during their first contact. "Elliot," the message began, "we have been watching your progress with great interest. You have made incredible strides with the knowledge we shared, and we are pleased to see that humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. The engine you have built is just the beginning. There are many more discoveries waiting for you, and we are here to guide you when you are ready." Elliot listened carefully, his heart swelling with pride. The Xilari had been watching them, and now they were offering their continued support. It was a humbling feeling, knowing that an entire alien civilization believed in humanity's potential. They weren't just visitors anymore, they were allies. The message continued. However, there is a matter that requires your attention. You are not the only species to have gained access to advanced technologies. There are others who seek to exploit this knowledge for their own purposes. The universe is full of dangers, and not all beings are as peaceful as we are. Be cautious, Elliot. The road ahead will not be without its challenges. The message ended, leaving Elliot staring at the flickering hologram. His mind raced. The Xilari had warned them. There were other civilizations out there, ones that might not share their values or their peaceful intentions. The stakes had just gotten much higher. He turned to Dr. Harris, who was standing beside him, watching the message with wide eyes. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. Elliot took a deep breath. "It means we're going to have to be prepared. We've taken the first step into a larger universe, and there will be dangers, but we can handle them. We've been given an incredible gift, and now it's up to us to protect it and make sure we use it wisely." The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity was on the verge of a new era. They had the knowledge, the technology, and the resolve to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had the stars in their reach, and nothing would stop them from exploring them. Elliot smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. Together with the team, with the support of the Xilari, and with the unyielding spirit of humanity, they would shape the future of the galaxy. The universe was vast, and their journey was only beginning.